The Monster Hunter's Journal. Episode 1 The Knocker. Part 1. Do not answer the knocking. 6 months after old Ben Carter died, Alexandra Carter believed the worst thing he had left behind was grief. She was wrong. Grief sat in his empty chair by the hearth. It lived in the old blue mug no one had washed and in the brown hat hanging by the door as if Ben might still walk in from the rain and reach for it. What he left beneath the grief was worse. Journals. Maps. Keys without labels. Iron nails wrapped in red thread. Rusted bells no one was meant to ring. Warnings written in Ben's crooked hand as if survival were no different from following a recipe. Alexandra had spent half her life thinking her uncle was either the wisest man in Briar County or the most damaged. The truth had no manners. He had been both. This case began with dead livestock and a bell in the woods. That was the simple version. The true version began long before Alexandra, in a mine called Bellhaven, when a young man heard 3 taps in stone and made the mistake of wanting to know what answered. If this journal is found after me, remember the first rule before you read anything else. Do not answer the knocking. The first track waited in the mud beneath the black pines. Alexandra crouched over it as evening drained the color from the sky. Mist slipped between the trees and crawled over the fence line at the edge of Paul Rusk's farm. Beyond the hill, Briar County was closing itself in for the night. Doors were being bolted. Dogs were being called inside. Lanterns were being lit in kitchens where no one wanted to admit they were afraid. The print was fresh. At first glance it almost looked canine, but only to someone desperate for an ordinary answer. The pad was too broad. The claw marks were too deep. The distance between one step and the next was too wide for a wolf and too controlled for a bear. Alexandra touched the edge of the print. Wet mud clung to her fingers. Recent. Very recent. She stood slowly, shotgun in hand. Old Ben had taught her to read tracks before he had taught her to drive. He had taught her never to whistle in dead woods, never to answer a crying voice unless she knew exactly who owned it, and never to believe daylight made a place safe. Then the livestock started dying. The first farmer blamed coyotes. The second blamed stray dogs. Paul Rusk stopped blaming anything after he found one of his calves wedged in the upper branches of a cedar tree, ribs cracked open, blood dripping through the needles. The woods had gone silent. That worried her most. A forest should never be empty of sound. But the pines stood quiet in the way prey went quiet when something worse had entered the field. There was blood on the grass. Not enough to mean the thing was wounded. More like something had stepped through a kill and carried the stain with it. She followed the tracks downhill toward the creek. The smell reached her before the body did. Wet bark. Old leaves. Pine resin. Under it all meat. The sheep lay twisted in the mud, wool matted black, throat open, belly torn wide. Alexandra stopped several feet away and forced herself to look at it like evidence, not suffering. A predator killed to feed. This thing had fed, yes, but it had also ruined. A branch cracked behind her. Alexandra spun, shotgun rising. Nothing moved. Then something above her shifted. Across the creek, high in the branches of an old pine, a second sheep hung like a broken rag. For one stupid moment her mind tried to make it into cloth, something thrown there by weather. Then she saw the horn. No coyote had done that. No wolf. No bear. Old Ben's voice rose in her memory. If it lifts prey high, look for old hunger. If it circles but does not finish, look for territory. If it takes the throat first and leaves the eyes, do not call it a beast. Beasts do not hate. A sound rolled through the trees, too deep to be a growl. Alexandra felt it in her ribs. From the far side of the creek something breathed. She could not see it. The shadows were too thick and the mist too heavy. But the breathing was there, wet, slow, patient. Alexandra raised the shotgun. I am not your sheep. The breathing stopped. The woods to her left exploded. Something massive tore through the brush. Alexandra fired. The blast cracked through the creek bed like thunder, and through the smoke she saw only fragments. Dark fur. A long back. A shoulder too high from the ground. Yellow eyes. Then it was gone. For 1 weak second she almost let herself call it a bear. Then the thought died. Bears did not throw sheep into trees, circle kills, test gunfire, and watch armed women from the mist. A hard breath escaped her. Damn it, Ben. A faint metallic sound came from near the creek. Clink. Alexandra froze. Clink. Not claws. Not branches. Metal. A small rusted bell hung from a low branch on a strip of red ribbon. Symbols had been carved into its surface. 3 sharp lines crossed through a circle. Beneath them curved a hooked mark. Alexandra pulled Ben's leather notebook from inside her jacket. There it was, sketched in his hand. The same circle. The same 3 lines. The same hook. Beside it, Ben had written 4 words. Do not ring it. The bell swayed though there was no wind. Beneath it, half buried in moss, lay a rotted boundary post. Alexandra brushed dirt from the wood and found rough letters still carved into the grain. Beyond this line, hunger walks like a man. Something laughed beyond the creek. Low. Broken. Almost human. Not funny. The laughter stopped. Then a scream tore through the woods from the direction of the Rusk farm. Not an animal. A man. Alexandra ran. She crossed the cattle path, broke through the fence line, and saw the farm lights glowing ahead through the mist. A lantern burned near the barn. The house stood dark on one side. The barn door hung open. That was wrong. Rusk had sworn he would lock it before sundown. No dog barked. No cattle stirred. Another cry came from inside the barn, shorter this time, choked off before it could become a scream. Alexandra slipped through the fence and ran. The barn smelled of hay, manure, blood, and fear. A lantern swung from a nail by the entrance, throwing wild light across beams and stalls. A pitchfork lay in the aisle. Beside it lay Paul Rusk's rifle. Alexandra stepped over it. Mr. Rusk. Something shifted in the loft. Alexandra raised the shotgun and looked up. The thing crouched among the hay bales. It was too tall, even folded in on itself. Its back arched beneath dark, matted fur. One long arm braced against a beam, claws buried deep in the wood. Its head hung low between its shoulders, and when it turned, the lantern caught the wet shine of its muzzle. It was not a wolf. It was not a man. It was something that had borrowed pieces of both and spoiled them. Paul Rusk hung limp from its other hand. Blood ran down his temple. His boots swung above the loft floor. Alexandra's fingers settled on the trigger. Put him down. The creature's ears twitched. Its mouth opened, and the sound that came out was not a growl. Carter. Alexandra went cold from scalp to spine. The thing knew her name. The creature dropped Rusk into the hay and launched itself from the loft. Alexandra fired. The blast struck it in the air and threw it sideways into a support post hard enough to crack the wood. The creature screamed and hit the barn floor, but it came up again with one shoulder torn and smoking. Not enough. She pumped the shotgun. Too slow. The creature crossed the aisle in a rush of claws and stink. Alexandra threw herself into an empty stall as the blow tore through the space where her face had been. She hit the straw, rolled onto her back, and fired upward. The second blast caught the creature across the ribs. It staggered, but it did not fall. The bell around its neck gave one soft clink. Alexandra saw it then, tied with a strip of red ribbon, rusted and marked like the one in the woods. The creature wore it not as decoration, but as sentence. Something had marked it, claimed it, sent it. She reached for the knife at her belt. The creature lunged. She rolled under one arm and drove Ben's hunting knife into the wound below its ribs. Hot blood spilled over her hand. It stank of copper, rot, and bitter burned herbs. The creature shrieked and slammed her into the stall wall. Pain burst through her side. The knife flew into the straw. The shotgun lay several feet away. Too far. The creature unfolded over her, lips pulling back from crowded teeth. A gunshot cracked from the barn entrance. Sheriff Hale stood in the doorway, rifle raised, face pale beneath his hat. Alexandra! Shoot again. Hale fired. The creature stumbled back. Alexandra dove for the shotgun, dragged it into her hands, rolled onto her side, and fired the slug. This time the impact threw the creature through the side of the barn. Wood burst outward. Cold air rushed in. The creature hit the mud outside, thrashed once, then vanished into the mist. Silence fell hard. Alexandra lay on the barn floor, shotgun aimed at the broken wall. Her ears rang. Her ribs burned. Blood slicked her hand, not all of it hers. Sheriff Hale came toward her slowly. What in God's name was that? Alexandra did not answer at first. Above them, Paul Rusk groaned in the loft. Alive. That mattered. She forced herself upright and looked toward the fog outside. Somewhere beyond the pasture, the creature was wounded and running through the dark. It wore an old warning around its neck. It had crossed a boundary Ben Carter had marked before Alexandra was born, and it had known her name. She looked down at the blood on her hand. Black threads moved through it, curling away from the lantern light. They were not worms. They were not veins. The blood itself seemed wrong, as if something inside it disliked being seen. Sheriff Hale saw it too. Alexandra. She wiped her hand against the straw and found Ben's knife half hidden under the hay. The handle was warm. Too warm. I need Ben's journals. Hale stared at the broken wall. You know what that thing is? Alexandra looked out at the mist. The forest waited at the edge of the land, black and deep and much too quiet. No. A howl rose from the tree line. It was not the cry of a wolf. It was not the scream of a man. It rolled across the farm, over the broken fence, over the barn, over the blood on the floor, and it sounded like a challenge. Alexandra turned toward it, shotgun in one hand and knife in the other. But I know where to start. From somewhere deep in the woods a bell rang once. A second bell answered farther away. And beneath both sounds, low in the dark earth, something knocked 3 times. End screen line. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for the next entry in the Monster Hunter's Journal. The hunt has only just begun.